It's all about the money.
Welcome to Colonize the Ocean podcast, where we discuss oceanic colonization, exploration, and education with your hosts Adam Jewell and Brendan Traxler.
So, as you have read in the title, who's going to fund it? That is a continuing issue, a question that has come up time and time again, and we've even discussed it on these shorts before. But the reason I'm asking the question and why it got jogged in my memory is, or my mind is, that I was at Underwater Intervention this past weekend. And if you don't know what that is, it's a large, it used to be annual, but then because of the pandemic, it shut down for a couple of years. But they're back this year. And basically, it's more underwater tech. They had partnered with Boatworks. There's a bunch of boat, like insurance and all that kind of stuff there. So it was more business to business, very technical stuff. But through my discussions with different people there, we got discussing underwater habitats. And this is a conversation that Michael Lombardi and me had several months ago, as well as the profitability of underwater habitats. Now, this gentleman I was speaking with, we didn't discuss that, but what we did discuss is that it's not cheap. And we were talking about different habitats out there and proposed out there, and talking about Fabien Cousteau and the amount of money that he's wanting to raise for his underwater habitat, which is a large underwater habitat. But he's like, yeah, he's way too low, and he's asking for a lot of money. And this guy, who's I would think that he would know based on his background. I don't want to give too much away because I don't know what I'm allowed to say and what I'm not allowed to say. But either way, that doesn't matter. The point is, the guy knows what he's talking about for the most part because of his background. But he was saying that he's not asking for enough money. So there we go. So how do you build underwater habitats if they're going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars? What's your return on investment on that? Who's going to fund that? And how are you going to pay for that? That's why I believe that those numbers are incorrect. And you might be saying, well, you're talking to this guy and he knows what he's talking about. And I agree. But there's several factors that come into play too. Is one, if you're building in the United States, you're going to have a lot of extra red tape, fees. Depending on who you go to, it may be higher labor rates, etc., versus overseas. And if you're using some kind of firm, they're going to, of course, their name is on the line, so they're going to go above and beyond on when they're building, and so overspec it, overbuild it, etc. So there's additional costs there. And once again, I'm not saying that you should cut corners and build a wood box and stick it underwater per se, but I do believe that the cost associated, firstly, can be brought down by the size and location and depth of your habitat, and that's why we at ASC are proposing a shallow underwater habitat that's small, just for the get-go, just to get our name out there, to get publicity, to get people talking, and still it's usable at the same time, and then we can go from there. Versus these other organizations out there, whether it is Fabien Cousteau or Planet Ocean Underwater Hotel or Poseidon Undersea Resorts. These are three very large underwater hotels that are easily $100 million projects. And that's a lot of money. Versus what we're proposing, which is a small underwater habitat that I believe can be made for a fraction of that amount of money. But once again, it raises the money. Who's gonna fund that? I think investors often like to see those big, large projects because they know, first off, it's going to be big and flashy and bring in people, but there's also a huge risk associated with that as well. So I don't have the answer. And that's why I pose these questions, because I don't have the answer often. Sometimes I do, or I have an idea. But we have talked to investors and we've talked to people, and we've done crowdfunding, and we'll continue to do stuff along those. We'll continue to talk to investors. We'll continue crowdfunding. We'll continue our Patreon and different avenues to raise money. But it's who do you go to? Who do you talk to? Who and even besides that, who do you think is going to be the organization that's going to be like, oh yeah, I see the future. The future is underwater, and let me put my money behind it. We know that Microsoft has already done that with data centers to an extent, or tested the waters there. No pun intended. But how does that look for other businesses, whether it's residential, or whether it's corporate, or whomever it may be? So how's it going to get funded, and who's going to fund it? Those are my questions for this week.